All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the webinar for past participants of the summits hosted by the Smithsonian Science Education Center and Shell Oil Company. My name is Katie Gainsback, and I will be hosting this afternoon's webinar. Thank you for joining me today. To begin, I'm going to quickly review some basic webinar etiquette. First, we ask that if you have a webcam, you leave it off to preserve our bandwidth, as multiple video feeds can really slow things down. There will be opportunities this afternoon to participate in some Q&A, but until you're prompted to do so, please keep your microphones on mute so we can limit any background noise. And finally, if you haven't already found it, you can open the chat by clicking on the little button that looks like a speech bubble on the bottom of your screen. My toolbar actually disappears when I'm not using it, so you may have to hover over that area to get it to pop up. My colleague Catherine is moderating the chat if you wish to pose a question or comment there at any point during the next hour. We have two primary objectives for today's webinar. First, to exchange information and lessons learned with participants of our past 3 summits. And second, to troubleshoot common challenges that teams are facing with implementation of their logic model while sharing best practices. A number of you have expressed a desire for opportunities to share and learn from one another after returning home from the summit. So we're really excited to bring you this webinar today. We hope it is only the first of many to help serve that need. So to kick us off this afternoon, I'm going to take a couple of minutes to share some updates with you all on where this movement has gone over the last few years and make sure everyone is up to speed on our latest work. I'll then turn it over to our wonderful guests who represent 2 teams that attended our most recent summit in the spring of 2019. They'll each have an opportunity to share their work along with tips and tricks that have really helped them in making strides with implementation of their logic model. And after they have presented, we do have time set aside for Q&A from the audience. Finally, I'll close us out with some reminders and announcements, so please stick around for that. For anyone who hasn't engaged with our movement recently or simply needs a refresher, we wanted to start with a quick background on our work so far. So our history. If you're attending this webinar today, you've probably been involved in one or more of the events listed on your screen. Our inaugural summit was held all the way back in 2017 at Howard University with a cohort of 22 teams. We learned a lot from that meeting and were able to implement updates to our program when we returned to Howard in 2018 to host a new cohort of 21 teams. And then this past spring, we opted for a change of scenery and hosted another 21 teams at Xavier University in New Orleans. So at this point, we've worked with a grand total of 64 teams representing 18 states in Puerto Rico and 36 school districts. Collectively, you impact a whopping 5.4 million students, which is incredible. And it's these students who we hope to see down the line benefiting from a more diverse teacher workforce and pursuing STEM careers, including teaching themselves. So when we initially convened our steering committee with Shell, the Smithsonian Science Education Center, and other thought partners, our goal was threefold: to achieve district systems change via the recruitment of candidates from underrepresented populations, to improve the retention of existing STEM teachers from those groups, and to grow the leadership opportunities available to STEM teachers from diverse populations. Now at the 2019 summit, we opted to focus specifically on the first and second bullets, supporting teams with problem statements related to recruitment and retention. But ultimately, our hope is that this work will lead to and occur concurrently with more leadership opportunities for teachers. Recently, we've come to the conclusion that this work is too important to get bogged down in a goal statement as wordy as the one on the last slide. And as with all good goals, we needed to make it measurable. So we've taken a cue from the organization 100K in 10, whose goal is stated right in their name: train 100,000 excellent new STEM teachers in 10 years. And we distilled our goal to this: attract and retain STEM teachers from underrepresented groups, resulting in 30,000 new and existing teachers by 2030. Of course, there's no way we can reach this goal alone. It's only through this greater network we're building with those of you on the line that we can hope to achieve our target. Now, to set the scene before we hear from our teams, I'm very excited to debut this video. This past March, we were lucky enough to have a team of videographers on site with us in New Orleans. Recently, they finished compiling their footage into the fantastic video I'm about to show, which outlines the implications of our current teacher population and your work to attract and retain a more diverse workforce. In just a second, I'm going to press play on this video, but we'll also drop a link in the chat box in case the streaming quality is poor, so you can watch it outside of the webinar if necessary. And I will also share the caveat that you may notice a typo at one point in the video, and there will be a newer version coming soon.
In 2014, minority students outnumbered white students in public schools for the first time. The ratio of teachers of color to students of color was higher in 1954, when there was an average about one teacher of color for every 24 students of color, whereas nowadays we're looking at about one teacher of color for every 50 students of color.
We can change the way we treat and value teachers. It will have a direct impact on the outcomes we see for our students. The upcoming summit that will occur in New Orleans, it's going to focus on attraction and retention efforts.
Good morning.
This movement began several years ago, working with some of our community partners and education partners, and how can we impact the availability of STEM professionals.
We're experts in education, in science education, in STEM education, but having partners in industry, it helps us widen our lens such that we're much more inclusive of understanding the whole ecosystem related to education.
So we started working backwards, trying to get to the root cause of the problem. And one of the challenges we found was that students weren't excited about math and science. And our best way to impact their interest in math and science was working with teachers.
And it's not enough just to hear about the problems, but you have to hear about how will you attack them from grassroots.
Getting teachers that look like them and that understand the cultural background of where they come from, I think it's imperative to the success before we lose them when they're young in middle school and high school. Those decisions are made if we don't put adults in there that can help them make those decisions that'll be good for them.
The change that I expect to see is that there is a shift in the mindset of the people, regardless of the color of your skin. More so a shift in the mindset of those in minorities, saying that they can do it and that they will do it and they shall do it.
I became totally convinced that we have to start introducing STEM fields to students at a very, very young age so that they will have the confidence to go into these fields.
So what we've identified is that in order to bring more students into the STEM workforce, we actually decided that we had to have teachers who mirrored the student population, and it's not balanced right now.
This work is important to Shell because of our need for a technical workforce, as well as ensuring that we have a science literate community. And as we pull both of these efforts together, not only do we help the economy of our local communities, but we ensure that students are prepared to meet the needs of the future and be successful in their chosen career paths.
We require the logic model. So it's very important to actually see you all go through this process because we believe that that's very important in terms of developing projects and sustaining them through time.
The conference is actually causing us to aggressively seek solutions with this particular problem.
Schools from states all over the country are going to be changed. And I think it's important that every plan goes back with their logic model and gets people in their district on board with, hey, we need help doing this. It's just taking action and not just building a good plan, but actually putting the action in there so it happens.
Teachers don't get enough pats on the back for the work that they do.
Without this type of program, oftentimes they would be left with doing things within their own limited powers and limited resources. So the funding from Shell for this, the expertise from the Smithsonian, the long-standing history of both of those organizations is something for all these teams to build on. And then actually they become a network within themselves, a network of resources within themselves that they can continue this work together.
So one of the things that we're trying to do through this work is increase the number of teachers from diverse populations who enter the STEM workforce, and therefore our students will be able to see themselves in others and will recognize that even if they don't enter the STEM profession, that they recognize that STEM is accessible to them within their communities.
All right. Well, a huge thank you to Shell Oil Company and IMG Artistry for producing that video. Stay tuned for the most updated version because we will be sharing that link far and wide with you as soon as it's available. I think this video makes an excellent tool for building awareness about this issue and generating interest in the work that everyone on the line today is already doing to implement change. Now, without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to our headliners this afternoon. We've invited two teams who participated in this past spring summit to share a bit about their context, their goals leaving the summit, and the progress that they have made since the spring. We'll hear first from Greene County Schools in North Carolina, followed by St. John the Baptist Parish Schools in Louisiana. After they have each had an opportunity to present, we hope to have about 15 minutes for Q&A. So feel free to type your questions into the chat as they are speaking, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. So if you'll give me just a moment, I'm going to hand over the controls to Frank. And I'll let both Frank Creech and Jose Garcia from Greene County Schools take it away.
Thanks, Katie. Hello, everybody. My name is Frank Creech. I'm Chief Academic Officer, and with me is
Jose Garcia, STEM Director for Greene County Schools.
And let's see if we can advance. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. So what we focused on at the Summit New Orleans was retaining our current students into a teaching academy type program so that we could keep some of our local students here, but also, again, have students who represent our demographics of our school community, but also understand the history of the rural North Carolina eastern part of the state. And so our goal was to increase our teaching corps diversity by 10%. And you can see in the problem statement there are some of the challenges that face our school district. And so what we have is a few slides here identifying some of the key challenges that we're working to overcome, and then some of the successes that we've had along the way as we've worked on those challenges. And so again, I just mentioned this, we want to make sure our students who are interested in pursuing a career in education have a competitive advantage when they leave our school system and move on to college. And so there are a few strategies that we use for that. One is dual enrollment credit, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, but also using some foundations and some local grants to help provide incentives to our students to return to the district. So for example, each school year we identify 2 or 3 students who have expressed an interest in becoming teachers and returning to the area. And so we basically formalize an agreement with them that if they complete a education prep program, receive their license, and come back to Greene County, then we guarantee them a first-year teaching position in the district. So it takes a little bit of the stress off of them in the job hunt if they choose to come back to the district. And our entire school community, from the superintendent and the school board down to the teacher level, and you can see here some other parties that we've engaged in this, our county economic development director, universities that a lot of our students go to if they pursue education and plan to stay in North Carolina, and then some funding groups as well have agreed to work with us on this challenge. We do have a relatively small district, a little over 3,000 students. We have around 220 teachers in our district, and unless you live here or you have connections in the surrounding towns and cities such as Greenville, where East Carolina University and a lot of industry is located, we don't have a lot of people seeking out to come work here in Greene County unless there's something that pulls them back. And unfortunately for us, a number of our surrounding districts have larger local salary supplements for teachers as well. So that's something else that we work to overcome. But what we have found by doing some interviews with our teachers who have actually worked in our district and left to go work in a neighboring district for higher pay, who have returned back to us, say that they had not really considered the benefits of the quality of the instructional coaching, all of the technology that our classrooms are stocked with, as well as what the teachers have accessible to them as far as facilitating their instruction. So there were some benefits, not financial benefits, but benefits that help them provide quality instruction on a regular basis that have helped us to retain some of our teachers. And another thing that we do, and I don't think this is extremely innovative, but we do believe in investing in our people, not necessarily programs and equipment. We spend about $1,000 every summer providing stipends to teachers to come in and either develop a revised curriculum, attend professional development, or even actually work in some of the summer STEM camps that we offer that are funded through foundations. So the teachers are able to come in and get a salary comparable to what they would be earning during the school year. And as you know, so many teachers seek alternate employment during the summers. And so this keeps them engaged in their work and hopefully helps to grow them professionally, as well as some satisfaction they receive from doing their work during the summer as well. This past year, we went back and reviewed what our hiring efforts have yielded as far as trying to improve our diversity of our teaching corps. And you can see we hired 29 teachers. And of those 8 teachers, 6 of those are teaching math or science, and we have 1 teaching coding and another teaching exceptional children. And again, these are our minority teachers who are new to the district this school year. So that's a big increase for us. And I think this really shows what a huge problem it is that we deal with in trying to diversify our workforce, but also what the SSEC and Shell Oil is working on nationwide. We found it pretty interesting that a small rural district in North Carolina, if you look there, you see our demographics. About 20% of our teaching corps are African American, Hispanic, and 80% are white. We compared this to one of the most diverse school districts in our state, and it's also the largest school district. It serves about 160,000 students. They employ 10,000 teachers, and their demographics, as well as the national demographics, were a mirror of our demographics in small rural Greene County, North Carolina. So we think that in addition to the demographics across the nation and the state, we think we have a few other barriers that we're working through as well. And that's why we've engaged people like our Economic Development Office and the Chamber of Commerce to help us or allow us to help them in improving the environment in Greene County as far as making it a more desirable place to live and work.
All right. Well, thank you so much to both Frank and Jose for those insights into the work that's happening in Greene County schools. I love how data-driven your observations are and what you're using to sort of inform the work that you're doing. At this point, if you have any questions for Frank and Jose and want to drop those in the chat, we'll take a look at those while we turn it over to our next round of presenters. We have Rochelle Darville and Cedric Veal, who are representing St. John the Baptist Parish schools in Louisiana. And Cedric, you should have control of the screen. And I think we have Rochelle on the line.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. We here at St. John the Baptist Parish are focusing on recruitment based on the dire need that we have for STEM teachers inside of our science, math, and technology classes. Right now, if you look at our problem statement, it shows a pretty glaring number that over 50% of our STEM classes are taught by non-STEM and uncertified teachers. And if you notice how the results of that number are negatively affecting our student achievement, our cognitive career readiness, and it also decreases the employability of students for St. John the Baptist Parish. So our goal is to recruit and retain, but first recruit people for those areas. And we've put in a number of action items into the works to recruit teachers into that area. So if you follow with us along, our goal is to increase STEM teachers by 25% by the end of 2021. Being a small district, we have roughly about 6,500 students. So that 25% would equate to about maybe 2 to 3 teachers by the end of 21. Roughly about 3 to 4, actually. So as we move forward and we take a look at, I think Rochelle has control of the slides. I don't have control over here yet. So if she could advance the slide over. Hello, Rochelle. Okay, thank you. Our challenges are very simple. You need to create buy-in from the community partners and industry in order to pull off this initiative. And one of the main things that we need to do is, that we started doing, was contacting our community partners who consist of industry, because we have a lot of oil and gas industry right around us, a lot of such as Marathon, Shell, DuPont, and Cargill, and reaching out to those industries because they have an incentive to basically invest in the local schools as well as our district, and also to hire from the community. So by increasing the proficiency of the students in the area, they're also increasing their workforce. So that's a win-win situation for both St. John the Baptist Parish and for the industry itself, so that they can meet their goals. One of the main things that we did so far was we contacted the superintendent, our previous superintendent, Mr. Kevin George, and we pitched the initiative to him, and he signed off on it. But unfortunately, he went to pursue other interests. So right now we're under the umbrella of electing a new superintendent. That should be happening by the end of this week. So at that point, we need to set up a meeting with them just to make sure that the initiative keeps going as we started out with it last year. Over the summer, we were able to create a summer STEM program in order to invite community partners in so they can have hands-on experience with the kids and see what the STEM program is about, as well as to talk to them, firsthand about our needs in St. John the Baptist Parish and also how it would benefit them. So that was one of the main attention getters that we had this past summer, and it was very, very successful. Okay, go to the next slide. As we look at our other challenge is locating certified STEM teachers. In working with our human resource department, we set up a lot of initiatives to go out into the local universities, because surrounding us there's at least 6, and we're actually working in partnership with them to actually recruit from their education departments directly into our district by offering incentives as well, just much like Greene County, trying to retain some of the local talent and bring them back into education by offering those types of incentives inside the district. We also have a training program that's inside the district to help people get certified who are not in the education field, but may want to leave industry and come into education, so they could get certified through the district, through a program, and it's basically a cohort system, and the people would get certified inside the district and be placed inside our district as well. Another success that we were able to start a program where we have a pipeline, and that pipeline reaches out Nicholls State University, we have Tulane, we have Xavier, we have Southeastern, all these local colleges right around us, UNO, all these have substantial education programs, but the only thing about it is that there's a lot of competition, and that's one of the main things that's hindering a lot of the growth of St. John the Baptist Parish, is the competitive advantage that we lack compared to other districts around us. So we're also going to talk to the superintendent about trying to be competitive, because right now, if you have roughly about 4 districts surrounding us, that puts us in a weird state as far as everybody's pulling from the same pool. And so that's kind of hindering the recruitment process, and everybody's fishing after the same fish roughly. So we got to really increase our bait in order to get people in to St. John the Baptist Parish, because like I said, we're right in the middle of about four large districts right around us as well. Okay, go to the next slide. And another challenge is, if you look at the first 2 bullets on the PowerPoint, the change in administration, which we talked about with our superintendent. So we're going to have to deal with another superintendent and actually basically see exactly where they are with the community relations and try and bring them along to the people that we've already reached out in the community and make those connections once again to solidify those relationships, because that's going to be a new process for them as well as for the industry to basically open up talks with another person and maintain an ongoing bonus match by the district. Right now, we have an incentive where we get pretty much a percentage of the sales tax every year. So that part is not figured into the salary, but that's an extension of the salary. So we actually need to have another incentive on top of that to be competitive with some surrounding districts who have offered raises as early as this past school year. They've all bumped up their salaries as well. So we've been pretty stagnant, and we didn't raise any salary. So they went up a little bit and we stayed the same. So that's another buffer that we need to try and close the gap on. Another success that we had was ongoing professional development for new and current teachers. Our district has a lofty investment into professional development, mainly with School Kit, who handles our Eureka math curriculum, and Learn Zillion, who handles our ELA curriculum. On the math side, one of the main things is that these teachers get a lot of support from the curriculum company in facilitation of the curriculum, and also as far as content knowledge getting passed on between their representative and our teachers. So that's another incentive for recruitment, is that they're going to get support not only from the district itself, not only from in-house at the local school, but also from the curriculum company itself. So that's another way to really bridge the gap for and increase the content knowledge of teachers coming in, and also help them out with their instructional practices. Okay, next slide. And in conclusion, St. John the Baptist Parish, like I said, once again, we're a small district trying to do big things right now. And in the process of doing it, right, our main focus, once again, is recruitment. And once we recruit them, we have to retain them, because like I said, we're in the middle of a competition for employees right now in education. So we're gonna just keep on moving on, and I'll hand it back over.
Great, thank you to Cedric and to Rochelle for sharing with us all of the great things happening in St. John the Baptist Parish. At this point, we are going to move into the Q&A portion of the afternoon, so feel free to continue to submit your questions for our presenters into the chat box. And if your question is for one group in particular, make sure you specify who you're seeking an answer from when you pose it. So I know we have a few questions coming in, and one of them is directed to Greene County. So I think I'll go ahead and pose that question. And I know Jose has some additional comments that he wanted to add to the conversation. So Jose, maybe you can also address this question after you make your comments. And that is that Lori asks, how does Greene County receive funding for students who want to become educators? And what does that look like for the students? And we'll go ahead and unmute your line so that you can respond.
Okay, thanks, Katie. So real quick, just a couple of comments from Dr. Creech's summary on what's been going on in the district. Is one of the things after the workshop last spring, we came back to the district, and the question that I had was, where is our district at as far as the diversity in the district is concerned? So we put into action a survey where we kind of wanted to map out where we were so that we know where to start and where we need to go. And I think that's a big thing for any school district, is to find out initially where you're at as far as your workforce diversity. So that way you can plan accordingly from there. But also on top of that, the second point was, once we got those that data coming in, that information, is that conversation did not just stop with Dr. Creech or the group that went to the training, but also it continued with some of our partnerships, and eventually got the teachers engaged and also the students, because a lot of times we overlook other areas that can help support this diversity in the workforce. And this is a conversation that it's ongoing with our teachers and ongoing with our students, so that when we're looking to recruit for our district, it doesn't just stop with our human resource department, but we also have now students and teachers that are actively helping us pursue and continue that recruitment and that retention phase for Greene County as well. Now, in regard to the question, I'm actually going to pass this one off to Dr. Creech, because he deals with a lot of the state funding and he is very embedded in this area.
Thanks, Jose. So how do we get the funding for students who want to become educators? We receive a local district allotment every year, as well as state and federal funding, but the local allotment we have the most flexibility with. And so what we've done is basically build a bit of a fund balance, enough for us to make good on any agreements that we make with students in the future. Most likely, just attrition is going to take care of that for us. Teacher will retire. Each year, even though we only have about 220 teachers, we typically have to hire 15 or 20 teachers at least, as teachers move to other districts or retire or choose a different career path. So what we're working on, though, that's not yet in place, but we're very excited about, is our state is developing a model with our community colleges and the state university system, which is similar to the teacher cadet model, but basically students would be able to begin taking some of their initial teacher education courses as dual enrollment courses in high school and gain college credit for that. and even take some additional courses at the community college, and then transfer to a 4-year teacher prep program where they would be able to continue their coursework at community college tuition prices. So that would be a significant savings for students, but also give them a foot in the door as far as having some of those courses out of the way. And we've also approached a funder and a university who are interested in helping us provide some incentives for the students along the way. So if they complete courses on a specific timeline, maintain a certain GPA, then some financial incentives like some merit-based scholarship rewards would be available to those students along the way, so they're not working for 4 years to get a guaranteed job at the end of it. So trying to incentivize them and make their work through the university a little more bearable financially. And we're excited about that, and we're continuing those conversations, and hopefully we'll be able to provide an update to you in the near future about steps we've made with that effort.
Great, thank you. So I've heard, everybody speak a little bit about thinking about funders and partners like local universities. I know that both Greene County and St. John the Baptist spoke about some strategies that they've used to obtain buy-in from key stakeholders. Greene County, I believe you've met with your board. St. John the Baptist, I know, mentioned inviting community and industry members to attend summer programs. And I wonder if there are maybe any other strategies you might want to share today to in helping to obtain buy-in from key stakeholders, or any advice that either of your teams have for to give to teams that are struggling to gain support or even attention from those that they've identified as key stakeholders.
So
I think both Greene County and St. John the Baptist, you are unmuted, so have at it.
Okay, I'll share real quickly from Greene County. This is Jose. We actually host a STEM expo every year. We've done that for the last 6 years. And initially, the idea behind that was that we wanted to, bring some awareness and help define what STEM education and this reform was going to look like in the district. And initially, we just wanted to invite, have some guests attend. We had maybe 50 people in mind, but it's been successful. In each year, we highlight what's going on in pre-K through 13 as far as around STEM education and the type of work that's taking place in the classrooms. But beyond that, we also invite some of our partnerships and some of the local universities, and we invite other guests as well from other schools to come and experience that. And we also invite the community. We have families that invite their grandparents. They're in there with their brothers and sisters, but it's about a 3-4 hour event where they're getting to see what STEM education and these projects look like, from math fair projects from that we have called our grand challenges that focus on engineering. We also have makerspace where they do some, simple stuff like face painting, some demos with computer science, drones, robotics. And then over the years, we've added some new features like our escape rooms. We've actually started to connect some of the things that take place in the classrooms to the STEM Expo as well. And now with some of our other partners like NEPRIS, we're able to bring in business professionals from around the globe so that they can Skype and speak with an astronaut or speak with somebody from as simple as our local business and industry as well. But this has grown to the point where we typically have at the most, we have about 800 guests that have come through. But typically it's between 400 and 800 guests that we have each year. And this is a great way to promote not just STEM education, but also the diversity that we have in our district regarding the workforce and our students, because really the students are the ones that are facilitating the events and the teachers are just there supervising. But it took time to get there. And that's just one of the events that we hold every year that really is successful for our district.
Very cool. I'd like to hear more about this escape room sometime. I'm very intrigued. Cedric or Rochelle, did you have anything to add?
Sure. Much like Greene County, we also have a STEM initiative inside of our district. And a couple of years ago, roughly 2 years ago, we started a STEM magnet program inside the district, where we pull kids from different schools who are basically excelling in math and science on the standardized test, and opened up the option to them to attend the STEM magnet school. So we have roughly about 400 kids at that school right now inside of our district who are getting exposure, not only exposure, but actually hands-on experience with robotics and classes such as that, as engineering, introduction to engineering, and classes like the advanced mathematics, where they have dual enrollment, as well as accelerated algebra for the 8th graders. So we're recording our small wins right now, because we know it's a process in order to get total buy-in. And as far as the summer camp that we had this past summer, I digress when I said that we invited corporations there, but corporations also participated inside the camp themselves. They sent some volunteers over to actually work with the kids on the hands-on projects that they were doing throughout that summer. So that was a good way to make that relationship, and also have, basically get some ambassadors to go back into their industry and talk about what they did while they were at the camp. So that was one initiative that took off this summer that we plan to keep going and making it an annual event. We also have math and science nights and STEM nights throughout the year, roughly one in each half of the year, for the community, where they could come out and also see some of those projects going on and promote. I mean, that's one thing I would tell anybody who's on the team that's working at it right now, is that you have to be your own ambassador, and you have to create ambassadors inside the community to go out and actually, basically by word of mouth and by exposure, promote what you're trying to do at your site. And that's one of the main things I could talk about, because once you have an open door of communication, that's half the battle, where you can actually talk and get dialogue and create those win-win situations for corporations, because in the end, they really want to invest, but they just want to know exactly how they're going to benefit as well, besides the tax write-off. And by increasing their employee base locally, that's one of the main initiatives that most corporations have who are housed inside of an area, that they have to recruit and hire from that area. So for their own sustainability. So that's one thing that we keep promoting inside the district.
Great, thank you, Cedric. Yeah, I think that's a really important point. How necessary it is to sort of show those stakeholders or funders or partners how the work can be mutually beneficial, not only to your school district, but to them as well in a personal and real way. So to switch gears a little bit, I do have a question here from Catherine. I know that both of your groups have identified as being small or smallish districts and or in a rural area. And while I know that certainly comes with its own unique set of challenges, sometimes it can be maybe a little bit easier to witness or see those small wins in a readily available fashion as a smaller group. So do you have any thoughts on how this work may scale to a larger district, or what might need to be in place to scale what you're doing more broadly? Bearing in mind how we have districts and teams that have attended summits from much larger and urban areas.
Well, I used to work in a very large urban district, and what I've learned coming to the small rural district is it's the same work, but it's the layers of support that vary. So in the large urban district, typically what I see is a team of people dedicated to this work, with some direct contacts back to school administrators and a school leadership team. And what, again, in larger districts, as far as success goes, is targeting some of the early adopters and the school administrators and the school leadership teams that really want to get behind something like this. That's where I've seen gains, and I've seen it happen in regions of larger districts, or just strategically selected schools across the district with a strategy that is going to take a little bit longer, but we hope that we're going to connect this K-12 either through feeder patterns or a magnet approach that Cedric was talking about.
Excellent, thank you. Cedric or Rochelle, anything to add?
I don't know if Rochelle wants to speak, or I will. Yeah, one of the main things, looking at a large district, I know it's sometimes when you view a large school district, you're really looking at accessibility of touching those people who are really the decision makers, because they have so much to cover. So it's really important that you have, like I said, once again, the ambassadorships inside the area that could actually go out and promote for you, because in our district, in a small district, it's pretty easy to touch the superintendent, to touch the assistant superintendent, but in large districts, you won't have that kind of capability all the time. So it's really important that you basically sell. I mean, it really is a sales job to sell the district as well as the community on the importance of the work, and making sure that that it's almost like a bombardment marketing piece, that they have buy-in all the way through the process, because they see where it's going to benefit student achievement on the school side, and also benefit the economy on the local side. So that's one of the main things, is bridging that gap between student achievement and, bettering the economy of the general area where they are. So I think that the more that you touch those people who are in those positions to kind of help promote what you're trying to do, and get everybody to see exactly what it's going to look like once you do bridge that gap, I think that's half the battle, is trying to put it in the forefront of people's minds that this is important. And then from there, opening those doors of communication to the right people on a larger scale in the large districts.
Excellent. So I think we have time for one more question really quickly, and I selfishly am going to ask one of my own, which is still related to communication and relationship building, but within your team. So I'm all about sort of the practicalities of continuing work after the summit ends and folks go back to their districts. And I know whether you're in a rural district or an urban district, there are often geographical challenges as well as just scheduling challenges in getting team members together regularly. A lot of people are maybe not based out of the same building as their other team members. So are there any tools that either of the teams have found to be particularly useful in facilitating your meetings with one another since leaving the summit? And if folks on the line have any suggestions as well that they want to chat in with their solutions, I would love to see those as well.
Yeah, I think I'll go first. And I think one of the main platforms, I mean, just like we're using today, is a Zoom platform, as well as using Google Hangouts, any type of platform where you can have an interface and you can actually have a visual shown as something that's very beneficial for the communication, because everybody can't be at the same place all the time. So in order to make it, basically a seamless meeting, we also could use Google Docs to make updates, live updates between documents that we need, or have conversations as well as side conversations inside while we're inside the same meeting, to basically get things done efficiently while we're apart. So I think that's one of the main things, is trying to find those platforms that you can communicate through and be efficient, just like you're in the same room.
I think Cedric clicked all the boxes on that answer. We rely a lot on the shared documents as well as video conferencing, just to check in with one another and share some ideas and maybe do some problem solving. We also use Canvas as our LMS, and created a course there just to archive our work and resources that we refer to on an ongoing basis.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to pause for a moment and again say a huge thank you to Cedric and Rochelle and Jose and Frank for your time and sharing all of your lessons learned. We really appreciate you helping us out and presenting on this webinar. And before we move on to the final announcements portion of our webinar, I want to stop and collect some input quickly from those of you on the line. I have two questions about your interest in having a virtual space to connect with teams like St. John the Baptist and Greene County on a more ongoing basis, other than webinars like this one, where it's just a one-off kind of thing. So there's a couple of ways to access my questions. You can get out your mobile devices or open a new tab in your internet browser and navigate to www.menti.com. Enter the code 152021 in the box and hit submit. You can use a QR reader on your phone to capture the code on your screen, which will take you directly to the page. Or you can click the link that Catherine is putting in the chat box. So I'll be quiet now for a moment so you can answer those questions and return shortly to continue the webinar. Thank you very much for your input. If you're still submitting your answers, please do so. But in the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and move on to our final section today for announcements and reminders. Our most exciting announcement, which many of you may have already seen, is that we will be hosting our 4th summit next spring. We'll be returning to Xavier University in New Orleans with a new cohort of teams and mentors on March 6th through 8th. That is a Friday through Sunday again, and falls about a week and a half after Mardi Gras. But if we learned anything this year, it's that the good times are always rolling in New Orleans, so I'm sure the city won't lack for festivities. Applications are now open on our website for both mentors and teams, so please check out that page using the link on your screen. I encourage you to share the opportunity with your colleagues in neighboring schools or districts, anyone you know who has a stake in the diversity of STEM educators or could benefit from the experience. And if you were on a team previously, we hope you might consider applying to return as a mentor this time. My less exciting but equally important reminder is related to reports. For the 2019 teams, the next report from team leads and mentors is due later this month on November 22nd. That report has the same format in SurveyMonkey as the earlier ones. Team leads and mentors should have received their link from me at the beginning of last week. There will be 2 more rounds of reports after this one next spring, about a year after the summit, and a final one at the end of this school year. And for those of you who attended a summit in 2017 or 18, you'll be hearing from us as well. Our 30K by 2030 goal is measurable, but we're going to need your help in getting those measurements. So please stay tuned for more information on that. And finally, for those of you who have hung in there with us this afternoon, thank you so much for your time and attention. I have one last request, which is that you take out your mobile devices again, and this time use the code 281775 at menti.com. There are 3 quick questions for you there about the possibility of holding future webinars like this one. So please do take a moment and leave us your feedback so that we can better meet your needs in the future. And as you're doing that, I'd like to take a final moment to thank our presenters once more for their time and willingness to share their lessons learned with this group. Rochelle, Cedric, Frank, and Jose, I really appreciate how enthusiastically you all accepted the invitation to participate in this inaugural follow-up webinar. It's been a huge pleasure to learn from you all and share in the celebration of your successes. So thank you. I'm going to leave this slide up for another minute or 2 while everyone submits their responses, but that concludes our webinar for this evening. Thank you again to everyone on the line, and have a great night.